Owens stared at her phone screen at 2 in the morning. Thumb hovering over the dating app she had downloaded 3 hours earlier in a moment of wine-induced bravery, wondering if she had finally lost her mind completely. The profile in front of her showed a man with dark hair and striking eyes, his bio reading simply, "Looking for something real in a world of filters." She swiped right before she could overthink it, then immediately regretted her decision and tossed her phone onto the nightstand like it had burned her. She was a 30-year-old museum curator who spent her days cataloging ancient artifacts and her nights rewatching the same comfort shows. And the idea of actually meeting someone felt both thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. The notification came through before she could even turn off her bedside lamp. A match. Then, seconds later, a message. "Still awake, or do you just keep unusual hours?" The message read. Kira grabbed her phone, her heart doing something ridiculous in her chest. "I could ask you the same thing," she typed back, trying to sound casual and not like someone who was currently sitting cross-legged in her bed wearing a faded college sweatshirt with a hole in the sleeve. "Fair enough. I'm Quinn. And I have insomnia, which is my excuse. What's yours?" She found herself smiling at her screen like an idiot. "Kira. And I apparently make questionable decisions late at night, like downloading dating apps. Is talking to me one of those questionable decisions?" "The jury's still out," she wrote back, then added, "but you seem relatively normal so far, which is already better than I expected." They talked until 4 in the morning. Not about anything profound or earth-shattering, just easy conversation that flowed like they had known each other for years instead of hours. He was funny without trying too hard, asked questions that showed he was actually listening to her answers, and when she finally said she needed to get some sleep because she had work in the morning, she felt genuinely disappointed to end the conversation. Over the next 2 weeks, Quinn Everett became a constant presence in her life. They messaged throughout the day, sent each other photos of interesting things they encountered, had long phone calls that stretched into the early morning hours. He told her he worked in real estate development, which sounded impressive but vague enough that she did not press for details. She told him about her work at the Harrison Museum of Natural History, about how she had always loved the stories behind objects, the way a single artifact could connect you to people who lived centuries ago. "I would love to see your museum sometime," Quinn said during one of their late-night calls, his voice warm through the phone. "Are you asking me out?" Kira asked, her stomach flipping. "I am absolutely asking you out. Unless you want to keep this as a purely digital relationship, which I would respect, but would also be incredibly disappointed about." They made plans to meet on Saturday afternoon. Kira changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans and a soft green sweater that her best friend Maya had once said made her eyes look incredible. She arrived at the coffee shop. They had chosen 15 minutes early and spent that time alternating between checking her reflection in her phone camera and wondering if it was too late to cancel and fake her own death. Then Quinn walked in, and every nervous thought in her head went completely silent. He was taller than she had expected from his photos, with broad shoulders and an easy confidence in the way he moved. But it was his smile that got her, warm and genuine and maybe just a little bit nervous too, which somehow made her feel better about her own racing heart. "Kira," he said, and the way he said her name made her feel like she was the only person in the entire coffee shop. "Hi," she managed, standing up too quickly and nearly knocking over her chair. He caught it smoothly, his hand steady on the back. "Nervous, terrified," she admitted. "You, absolutely," he grinned, "but I'm also really glad I'm here." They ordered coffee and sat in a corner booth. And within minutes, it felt as easy as their phone conversations had been. He asked about her favorite artifact in the museum, and she found herself telling him about a Roman glass vessel that had survived 2,000 years intact, about how she sometimes stood in front of it and marveled at the fact that human hands had shaped it so long ago. "You light up when you talk about your work," Quinn said, watching her with an expression that made her cheeks warm. "Is that a polite way of saying I talk too much?" "It is a genuine way of saying I could listen to you talk for hours and not get bored." The afternoon stretched into evening. They left the coffee shop and walked through the city, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up with a single mother who had worked 3 jobs to put him through school, about how he had sworn he would make something of himself so she would never have to work that hard again. There was something in his voice when he talked about his mother that made Kira's heart ache in the best way. "She sounds amazing," Kira said. "She is. She lives in a house I bought her in Connecticut now, spends her days gardening and complaining that I do not visit enough." He looked at Kira. "What about your family?" "My parents are both professors. Dad teaches literature, Mom teaches anthropology. They're probably where I got my love of history. My brother is a doctor in Seattle, which makes me the underachiever of the family according to my grandmother. A museum curator is hardly an underachiever. Tell that to my grandmother. She thinks I should be married with kids by now." Quinn was quiet for a moment, and Kira worried she had said something wrong, brought up marriage and kids on a first date like some kind of desperate cliché. But then he said, "For what it is worth, I think you are exactly where you are supposed to be." They stopped in front of the museum where she worked, the old stone building illuminated by spotlights that made it look almost magical in the twilight. "This is me," Kira said. "I mean, this is where I work. Obviously, I do not live in the museum, although some days it feels like I do." "Can I see you again?" Quinn asked, and there was something vulnerable in the question that made her want to say yes 1,000 times. "I would really like that." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "Tomorrow, I have to work until 3. Tomorrow at 4 then, I will pick you up here." They saw each other every day after that. Quinn would show up at the museum when she finished work, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with flowers, always with that smile that made her feel like she was the best part of his day. They explored the city together, found hole-in-the-wall restaurants and quiet parks, spent hours talking about their dreams and fears, and all the little things that made them who they were. 3 weeks into dating, Kira realized she was falling in love with him. The thought scared her and exhilarated her in equal measure. She had been in relationships before, but nothing had ever felt like this. Like Quinn had somehow become essential to her happiness in a startlingly short amount of time. They were at her apartment cooking dinner together when Quinn's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted, something tense crossing his face. "I need to take this," he said. "I am sorry." "Of course." Kira focused on chopping vegetables while Quinn stepped into the hallway, but she could hear pieces of his conversation anyway. "No, move the meeting to Thursday. The Shanghai investors can wait. Yes, I am aware of how much money is involved. Marcus, I do not care, make it work." When he came back in, he looked tired in a way she had not seen before. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just work stuff. Nothing important." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Sorry about that. Shanghai investors sounds pretty important." He tensed slightly. "It is just business talk, boring stuff." Kira turned in his arms to face him. "Quinn, you know you can talk to me about work, right? I know you said you do real estate development, but I realize I do not actually know much about what you do." "I buy properties, develop them, sell them," he said, which was not really an answer at all. "Can we not talk about work right now? I would much rather focus on you." He kissed her then, and Kira let herself be distracted, but a small seed of doubt had planted itself in her mind. It was not that she thought Quinn was lying to her exactly, but there was something he was not telling her, something he was deliberately keeping from her. Over the next few days, she started noticing other things. The way he always paid in cash, never with a credit card. How he was vague about where he lived, always suggesting they stay at her place instead. The expensive watch he wore that looked like it cost more than her entire yearly salary. When she Googled Quinn Everett real estate, nothing came up, which seemed strange for someone who apparently dealt with international investors. "You are being paranoid," Maya said when Kira brought it up over lunch. "So he is private about his work. Plenty of people are. But what if he is married, or a criminal, or a married criminal? Does he seem like either of those things?" "No," Kira admitted. "He seems perfect, which is kind of the problem. Nobody is actually perfect." "Maybe just ask him," Maya suggested. Crazy idea, I know, but communication tends to work in relationships. That night, Kira decided to do exactly that. She and Quinn were supposed to have dinner at her place, and she was going to ask him directly about why he was so secretive. But when she opened her door, Quinn was standing there looking absolutely panicked, his phone pressed to his ear. "I understand. Just tell her I will be there as soon as I can. No, cancel everything tomorrow. My mother is more important than any meeting." He hung up and looked at Kira. "I am so sorry I have to go. My mother is in the hospital." "Oh my God, Quinn, what happened?" She fell. "They think she might have broken her hip. I need to get to Connecticut tonight." He ran a hand through his hair, looking more rattled than she had ever seen him. "I am sorry about dinner." "Do not apologize. Do you want me to come with you?" He looked at her with such gratitude that it made her chest ache. "You would do that?" "Of course I would." They drove to Connecticut in Quinn's car, which Kira noted was a Mercedes that looked very new and very expensive. He was quiet for most of the drive, his jaw tight with worry, and she held his hand and told him everything would be okay. The hospital was small, tucked into a quiet town that looked like something from a postcard. Quinn moved through the halls like he knew exactly where he was going, and Kira followed until they reached a private room where an older woman lay in a hospital bed, her leg elevated and wrapped. "Quinn, baby, you did not have to drive all the way here," the woman said, but her face lit up when she saw him. "Of course I did." He kissed her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Like I fell down the stairs and broke my hip, which is exactly what happened." She noticed Kira then, hovering in the doorway. "And who is this lovely girl?" "Mom, this is Kira. Kira, this is my mother, Patricia." "The museum curator," Patricia said, smiling. "Quinn has told me so much about you. Come here, let me look at you properly." Kira approached the bed, feeling suddenly nervous. "It is nice to meet you, Mrs. Everett. I am sorry it is under these circumstances. Please call me Patricia. And this is hardly the worst thing that has happened to me. Last month I got stung by a bee while gardening. That was much more dramatic." She looked between Quinn and Kira with obvious approval. "You are even prettier than Quinn described, which I did not think was possible given how he goes on about you." "Mom," Quinn said, his ears turning slightly red. They stayed at the hospital for hours. A doctor came in and explained that Patricia would need surgery but should recover fully. Quinn asked detailed questions about the procedure, the recovery time, the best surgeons available. There was something different about him here, something more commanding, and when he stepped out to make phone calls about his mother's care, Kira heard him speaking with an authority that suggested he was used to getting what he wanted. It was nearly midnight when a nurse suggested they go home and get some rest. Quinn looked reluctant to leave, but Patricia insisted, and eventually he agreed. They drove to his mother's house, which was beautiful in a way that made Kira do a mental double take. This was not just a nice house. This was a sprawling estate with manicured gardens and the kind of architecture that belonged in magazines. "Your mother's house is incredible," Kira said as they walked inside. "I wanted her to have something special after all those years of struggling," Quinn said, not quite meeting her eyes. They were both exhausted, and Quinn showed her to a guest room before disappearing into what she assumed was his old bedroom. But Kira could not sleep. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, her mind racing with questions. She got up to get some water and noticed light coming from under a door down the hall. She knocked softly. "Come in," Quinn called. He was sitting at a desk, his laptop open in front of him, looking tired and worried. "Cannot sleep either." "Not really." Kira sat on the edge of the bed. "Your mom seems wonderful. She is the best person I know." He closed his laptop and rubbed his eyes. "I am sorry about all this. Not exactly the romantic evening I had planned. Quinn, I do not care about romantic evenings. I care about you." She took a breath. "But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He went very still. "Okay. Who are you? I mean, really. Because I do not think you are just some real estate developer. The way you talk to that doctor, this house, the way you move through the world. You are hiding something from me, and I need to know what it is." Quinn was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You are right. I have not been entirely honest with you." He opened his laptop and turned it around to face her. "My full name is Quinn Alexander Everett. I am the CEO of Everett Holdings, which is a multinational real estate and investment corporation. My personal net worth is somewhere around $4 billion, though it fluctuates depending on the market." Kira stared at the screen, which showed a Forbes article with Quinn's photo and the headline "Billionaire Developer Quinn Everett Expands Empire to Asia." Her brain felt like it was short-circuiting. "You are a billionaire," she said slowly. "Yes. And you did not think to mention this." Quinn stood up and started pacing. "I know how it sounds. But Kira, do you have any idea how many people want things from me? How many relationships I have been in where the person was more interested in my money than in me? When we matched on that app, you had no idea who I was. You talked to me like I was just a regular person. Do you know how rare that is for me? So you lied." "I did not lie. I just did not tell you everything." "That is the same thing, Quinn." Kira felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "I have been falling in love with you, and you could not trust me enough to tell me the truth. You are falling in love with me." He stopped pacing and looked at her with such hope that it made her angry. "That is what you are focusing on right now. Not the fact that you have been lying to me for weeks. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right time." "And when would that have been? After we got married? After I found out from someone else?" She stood up. "I need to think. I need space. Kira, please. Can you take me to the train station in the morning? I am going back to the city." Quinn looked like she had physically struck him. "If that is what you want, it is what I need." She went back to the guest room and locked the door, then sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Because she was still in love with him, which made this hurt so much worse. The Quinn she had gotten to know over the past few weeks had been real. She was sure of it. But how could she trust anything now? How could she know what was true and what was carefully curated? In the morning, Quinn drove her to the train station in silence. Before she got out of the car, he said, "I am sorry. I handled this all wrong, but my feelings for you, everything we shared that was real, I swear to you." Kira did not know what to say, so she just got out of the car and walked into the station without looking back. The next week was miserable. Quinn called and texted, but Kira did not answer. She threw herself into work, cataloging a new collection of pre-Columbian pottery that had been donated to the museum. Maya tried to get her to talk about it, but Kira did not want to talk. She just wanted to stop feeling like her heart had been ripped out of her chest. 8 days after she had left Connecticut, a package arrived at the museum addressed to her. Inside was a leather journal, old and worn, and a note in Quinn's handwriting. "This belonged to my mother," the note read. She started writing in it when she was working those 3 jobs, writing down her thoughts and dreams for the future. "She gave it to me when I made my first million, told me to never forget where I came from. I want you to read it, so you can understand why I am the way I am. And then, if you never want to see me again, I will respect that. But please give me a chance to explain. Please." Kira sat at her desk and opened the journal. Patricia's handwriting was small and neat, entries dated over 30 years ago. She wrote about working as a waitress, a cleaning lady, a night shift factory worker, about being so tired she could barely stand but pushing through because her son needed her. She wrote about a man who had promised her the world and then left when he found out she was pregnant, about the shame and fear and determination to prove she could do it alone. And she wrote about Quinn, about how smart he was, how kind, how he would share his school lunch with kids who did not have one. About the day he came home at 16 and told her he had started a business buying and reselling electronics, about how he had given her his first paycheck and told her to quit one of her jobs, about watching him build an empire while staying the same sweet boy who had held her hand through the hardest years of their lives. By the time Kira finished reading, she was crying again. But these were different tears. She understood now why Quinn had been so guarded, why he had wanted to be sure of her feelings before revealing the full truth of who he was. It did not make the lying right, but it made it comprehensible. She called him. He answered on the first ring. "Did you read it?" he asked. "I read it." "How is your mom?" "Surgery went well. She is already complaining about physical therapy, so that is a good sign." "I am glad." Kira took a breath. "Can you come to the museum tomorrow around 6 after we close? I will be there." The next day, Kira was a nervous wreck. She had a whole speech prepared, had practiced it in her bathroom mirror that morning. But when Quinn walked into the museum at 6 on the dot, looking uncertain and hopeful and so heartbreakingly handsome in his dark coat, every word she had planned flew out of her head. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood there in the empty lobby of the museum, and Kira felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. "I was so angry with you," she started. "I felt like you did not trust me, like everything we had was built on a lie. I know, you had every right to be. But reading your mother's journal, I started to understand. I cannot imagine what it is like to have people constantly wanting things from you, to never know if someone likes you for who you are or what you can give them." She moved closer to him. "I fell in love with the man who talked to me until 4 in the morning, who remembered that I take my coffee with 2 sugars, who held my hand while we walked through the city. That man is who you are, Quinn. The money does not change that. You said you fell in love with me. Past tense." His voice was rough. "No, I said I fell in love. I am still falling. If you want me to be." Quinn closed the distance between them in 2 strides and kissed her like she was oxygen and he had been drowning. Kira kissed him back with everything she had, her arms wrapping around his neck, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I love you. I have loved you since that first phone call when you told me about the Roman glass vessel. I love the way you see beauty in old things, the way you talk with your hands when you get excited, the way you make me feel like I am more than my bank account. I love you, Kira Owens, and I promise I will never hide anything from you again. I love you too." Even though you are ridiculously rich and apparently famous, which is still weird for me, he laughed. I am sorry about the famous part. That is non-negotiable. I suppose I can learn to live with it. They stood there in the museum lobby, holding each other, and Kira felt like every piece had finally fallen into place. This was what she had been looking for without knowing it, this feeling of complete rightness. Can I take you somewhere? Quinn asked. There is something I want to show you. They drove to a building in Manhattan, all glass and steel and modern architecture. Quinn led her to a private elevator that required a key card, and they rode up to the top floor. When the doors opened, they stepped into a penthouse apartment that was so beautiful Kira actually gasped. This is where you live? She asked, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the entire city. This is where I sleep sometimes, Quinn said. It has never felt like home. But I wanted you to see it, to see all of who I am. He showed her around, and Kira could see that despite the luxury, there was something impersonal about the space. It looked like a hotel, not a home. Until they got to Quinn's office, which was filled with personal touches. Photos of his mother, books on architecture and history, and on his desk, a framed photo of Kira that he must have taken during one of their walks in the park. You have my picture on your desk, she said softly. I look at it when I am working late and missing you. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. I want you in my life, Kira, fully in it. I want you to meet my friends, to come to my business events, to be part of my world, but only if that is what you want. I know dating me comes with complications. What kind of complications? Media attention. People having opinions about our relationship. Gold digger accusations, probably. That sounds awful. It can be. But I promise I will do everything I can to protect you from the worst of it. He turned her around to face him. You are worth it. You are worth everything. Kira thought about her quiet life, her work at the museum, her small apartment and predictable routines. Then she thought about Quinn, about how he made her feel alive in a way she had not felt before. The choice was not really a choice at all. I am in, she said. Complications and all. His smile was like sunrise. Yeah, but I am keeping my apartment and my job. I am not becoming some kept woman who lunches and gets her nails done. I would never ask you to give up your work. I love what you do, although I would not mind if you got your nails done occasionally. Or let me buy you things. I am very good at buying things. I am sure you are, but maybe we can start slow on that front. Anything you want. They spent that night talking about everything they had avoided before. Quinn told her about the pressure of running a multi-billion-dollar company, the weight of responsibility for thousands of employees, the constant negotiations and deals that filled his days. Kira told him about her dreams of curating her own exhibition, maybe writing a book about the stories behind museum collections. I could fund an exhibition, Quinn said. The museum must need donors. No, absolutely not. I want to earn that on my own merit, not because my boyfriend has money. She paused. Is boyfriend the right word for a billionaire? Boyfriend works perfectly. In the morning, they had breakfast on his terrace as the sun rose over the city. Kira was wearing one of Quinn's shirts, her hair messy, and she had never felt more beautiful than when he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure this out together. You keep being brilliant at your job. I keep trying to make ethical business decisions and not turn into a corporate monster. We have dinner together as often as possible. We keep falling in love. He reached across the table and took her hand. We build something real. Over the next 6 months, they did exactly that. It was not always easy. The media did find out about their relationship, and there were articles calling Kira a gold digger and questioning what a billionaire CEO saw in a museum curator. But Quinn shut down the worst of it with a statement from his publicist and a well-placed interview where he talked about Kira with such obvious love that even the cynics had to back off. Kira met Quinn's business associates and learned to navigate the world of charity galas and investor dinners. She was surprised to find she was good at it, that her knowledge of history and art made her an interesting conversationalist, and that people genuinely seemed to like her once they got past their initial assumptions. Quinn came to the museum constantly, became friendly with her colleagues, donated money for a new climate control system for the archives because he knew how much Kira worried about preserving the artifacts. He did it anonymously, but Kira knew. Patricia recovered fully from her surgery and loved Kira immediately. "You are good for him," she told Kira during one visit to Connecticut. "He smiles more. He seems lighter." "He is good for me too," Kira said. "I know. I can see it in the way you look at each other." That is the kind of love that lasts. A year and a half after their first date, Quinn took Kira back to the coffee shop where they had met. He had rented out the entire place, which she initially protested about. "This is excessive," she said. "Everything I do for you is going to be excessive. Get used to it." They sat in the same booth where they had spent that first afternoon together, and Quinn took both her hands in his. "The day I matched with you on that app, I was not looking for anything serious. I was tired and bored and swiping through profiles at 2 in the morning like some kind of insomniac cliché. And then I saw your profile, and something made me actually read your bio instead of just looking at your photos. You said you loved stories about objects, about the people who touched them and used them and loved them across time. And I thought, that is someone interesting. That is someone I want to know." Kira felt tears pricking at her eyes. "When we started talking, I fell for you so fast it scared me. I kept waiting for the moment when you would want something from me, when you would show your true colors. But that moment never came. You just kept being kind and funny and passionate about your work. You kept seeing me, Quinn, not my bank account or my company or my connections. Just me." He slid out of the booth and got down on one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Kira's heart stopped. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to support your dreams and have you support mine. I want to build a home together, have a family together, grow old together. Kira Owens, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a vintage setting that looked like it belonged in her museum, and Kira realized he had chosen it specifically because he knew her taste, knew that she would prefer something with history and character over a modern design. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Kira felt like her heart might burst from happiness. This was real. This was everything she had never let herself hope for. They got married 8 months later in a small ceremony at the museum. Patricia cried through the entire thing. Maya was Kira's maid of honor and gave a speech about how she had known from the beginning that Quinn was the one, which was a complete lie but a sweet one. Quinn's best friend Marcus, who served as best man, told embarrassing stories from their college days that made everyone laugh. But the best moment was when Kira and Quinn stood together in front of the Roman glass vessel she loved, the one she had told him about on their first date, and promised to love each other for better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. "I already have the richer part covered," Quinn whispered during the ceremony, making her laugh through her tears. "We are supposed to be serious right now," she whispered back. "I am serious, seriously in love with you." They bought a house together, something that felt like a home instead of a showplace. Kira kept working at the museum and eventually did curate her own exhibition, a collection exploring the intersection of ancient trade routes and cultural exchange. It was critically acclaimed and traveled to museums across the country. Quinn went to every opening, stood in the back and watched Kira give talks about her work, his pride visible to anyone who looked. 2 years after their wedding, Kira found out she was pregnant. Quinn cried when she told him, held her so tight she could barely breathe, and immediately started reading every parenting book he could find. "You are going to be such a good father," she told him one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on her growing belly. "I am terrified I am going to mess it up. You will not. You are the kindest man I know." Their daughter was born on a sunny day in May with Patricia's dark hair and Kira's eyes. They named her Rose Patricia, and when Quinn held her for the first time, Kira fell in love with him all over again. Life was good. It was better than good. It was everything. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they went back to that coffee shop again, a tradition now. They sat in their booth with baby Rose sleeping in her carrier beside them, and Quinn said, "Do you ever think about that night you swiped right?" "All the time. Best questionable decision I ever made. I think about what would have happened if we had not matched, if I had been looking at my phone a few seconds later if you had swiped left instead. All the ways we could have missed each other. But we did not. We found each other." "We did." He reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. "And I would find you in every life, in every timeline. You are it for me, Kira. You always will be." Kira looked at her husband, at their daughter sleeping peacefully, at the life they had built together from a single swipe on a dating app at 2 in the morning. It seemed impossible that all of this had started from something so random, so unlikely. But maybe that was how the best love stories happened. Not through careful planning or logical decisions, but through chance and chemistry and the willingness to take a leap into the unknown. "I love you," she said, "from that first message until forever." "Forever sounds perfect to me," Quinn replied, and kissed her across the table while their daughter slept and the afternoon sun poured through the windows, bathing everything in golden light. They had started as strangers on a screen, 2 people looking for connection in the vast digital world. But they had become so much more. They had become partners, lovers, best friends, parents. They had become home to each other. And it all started with a swipe, a match, and the courage to believe that sometimes the best things in life come when you take a chance on the unknown. Sometimes all it takes is one moment of bravery at 2 in the morning, one decision to reach out instead of pulling back, one person who sees you for who you really are and loves you anyway. Kira had swiped right on a profile that night, not knowing she was swiping into her entire future. But now, watching Quinn make silly faces at their daughter to make her smile, feeling the weight of her wedding ring and the depth of her happiness, she was grateful for every step that had led her here. This was love. Real, imperfect, complicated, beautiful love. And it was worth every moment of fear and uncertainty it had taken to find it. Years later, when Rose was old enough to ask how her parents met, Kira would tell her the story. About the dating app and the late-night message and the billionaire who just wanted to be seen as a regular person. About the lies that were not really lies and the trust that had to be built and rebuilt. About choosing love even when it was scary, especially when it was scary. And Rose would grow up believing in the kind of love that transforms you, that makes you braver and kinder and more fully yourself. She would believe in taking chances and being honest and building something real with another person. But that was still to come. For now, there was just this moment, this perfect ordinary afternoon in a coffee shop, with the family Kira had never known she was searching for until she found it. Quinn caught her staring and raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking about? How happy I am. How grateful I am that you had insomnia that night. Best insomnia of my life." Rose stirred in her carrier and opened her eyes, looking up at her parents with that serious expression babies sometimes get. Kira picked her up and held her close, breathing in that baby smell that she knew would fade too soon. "What do you think, Rose?" Quinn asked, reaching over to stroke his daughter's cheek. "Think your mom and I did okay." The baby made a cooing sound that they both decided to interpret as agreement. "She is very wise," Kira said solemnly, "just like her mother." They stayed in that coffee shop until Rose got fussy and needed to go home, until the barista started giving them looks that suggested they had been there long enough. As they packed up and prepared to leave, Kira took one last look at the booth that had started everything. "Same time next year?" Quinn asked. "Same time next year," Kira agreed. They walked out into the city streets, pushing Rose's stroller together, their hands intertwined. Just another family on an afternoon walk, invisible among the crowds. But to each other they were everything. The match that had become a love story, the swipe that had changed two lives forever, the connection that had turned into a lifetime commitment. And somewhere in the vast digital universe, their profiles were long deleted, their messages erased, the evidence of that first conversation lost to time. But it did not matter. They carried the memory of it in their hearts, the proof of it in their life together, the result of it in the baby sleeping peacefully in her stroller. Kira had been looking for something real in a world of filters. And she had found it in the most unexpected way, with the most unexpected person. She had found her forever in a swipe, her future in a match, her home in the arms of a man who had been just as scared and hopeful as she was. That was the thing about love, she thought as they walked home through the golden afternoon. It found you when you least expected it, in the most unlikely places, at the most imperfect times. All you had to do was be brave enough to say yes when it knocked on your door at 2 in the morning with a simple message asking if you were still awake. And Kira had said yes. To the message, to the date, to the relationship, to the proposal, to the life they had built together. She had said yes to all of it, and she would keep saying yes for the rest of her days, because sometimes a single swipe could change everything. Sometimes the person on the other end of a screen could become your entire world. Sometimes the best love stories started with the smallest decisions and grew into something magnificent. This was their story. The museum curator and the billionaire, brought together by algorithms and insomnia, and the universal human desire to be known and loved for who you really are. And they lived happily ever after, surrounded by love and laughter and the family they had created together, proving that fairy tales could happen in the modern world if you were willing to believe in them.